I'll ask everybody, if the security barriers around Gaza were removed right now, and Israel said to the people of Gaza, please, free movement, what would happen? I do not believe anyone could make the argument that Israeli civilians would take up guns and run full speed into the Gaza Strip and start massacring civilians. But people from Gaza would run full speed into Israel, and they would take up guns and they would massacre civilians. Don't believe me? Well, when they paraglide in and tear the fences down, that's what happened. And of course, many of the pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza would say, yes, but it's because they want their land back. Yeah, okay, right. War's over, okay? The idea that you would argue that they are justified in engaging in warfare, which will kill civilians, war's over, okay? That Israeli civilians would take up guns and run full speed into the Gaza Strip and start massacring civilians. But people from Gaza would run full speed into Israel, and they would take up guns and they would massacre civilians.
I don't think all Gazans,
when they paraglide in,
I see what Tim is
down,
saying.
that's what happened.
I don't think
and of course,
all
many
Gazans.
of the pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza would say, yes, but it's because they want their land back. Yeah, okay, right. War's over, okay? The idea that you would argue that they are justified in engaging in warfare, which will kill civilians, sorry, not happening. That's it. If the Uyghur Muslims broke out of the camp and started massacring civilians, yeah, I'm going to speak out against the Uyghur Muslims, no question. If the Uyghur Muslims break out of the camps and try to flee, and they seek to secure a certain territory to protect themselves, I'm on their side.
Yeah.
If Hamas broke through the barriers and expanded their territory, gained ground, and ushered away their side. If the Uyghur Muslims break out of the camps and try to flee, and they seek to secure, if the Uyghur Muslims break out of the camps and try to flee, Muslims broke out of the camp, that they are justified in engaging in warfare, which will kill civilians. Sorry, not happening. That's it. If the Uyghur Muslims broke out of the camp and started massacring civilians, yeah, I'm going to speak out against the Uyghur Muslims. No question. If the Uyghur Muslims break out of the camps and try to flee, and they seek to secure a certain territory to protect themselves, I'm on their side. If Hamas broke through the barriers and expanded their territory, gained ground, and ushered away all the civilians, we would be having a very, very different conversation.
Yep.
If they minimize civilian casualties and this is a conflict between Hamas and Israel, the militaries and civilians were spared, very different conversation.
Facts.
Not as simple to say who's good or who's bad. You can make the argument that fighting over land, I mean, you've got war, what can we say? The Palestinians are making a claim. That's different for me. This one we're seeing right now, let me show you where we're at. 300 protesters pleading for a ceasefire were arrested on Capitol Hill, organizers said.
300 plus.
The New York Times
300
organization is a skin suit war
300
by evil people
plus.
masquerading as journalism. Don't believe me? Got the tweets. Michael P. Sanger. I'm not familiar, I don't know, who's this? Author of Snake Oil, How Xi Jinping Shut Down the World tweets. Yesterday, the New York Times published a fictitious story from Hamas about Israel bombing a hospital. The New York Times used a picture from a completely different location to make it look like a picture of the hospital that was destroyed.
That's crazy.
Astonishing disinformation.
That's deplorable.
You know, I'm careful, right?
Odious.
Just a screenshot. I don't know if it's real. I'm just assuming that it is. But I'll tell you that. I believe that it is absolutely likely, because we've seen this numerous times. It is true. The New York Times does these things. You take a look at
Slimy,
this
bro. Slimy.
It says Israeli forces again bombarded Gaza with airstrikes on Tuesday, including the southern cities and Israeli strike kills hundreds in hospital, Palestinians say. And then they put a photo of a different building. Because they wanted you to believe that what the Palestinians said was true. Was it true? No. It is
false.
Absolutely. And well, I should calm down. Based on the evidence we have so far, from satellite, from drone imagery, from footage from the site, from numerous angles and numerous individuals, parking lot fire, Palestinians said was true. Was it true? No. It is absolutely. And well, I should calm down. Based on the evidence we have so far, from from drone imagery, from footage from the site, from numerous angles and numerous individuals. Parking lot fire. Hundreds did not die. But wait, there's more. The Wall Street Journal.
For college. 5-hour energy got you through there.
Kills hundreds. Fake news. That's crazy, right? And now we have this. The Wall Street Journal runs this story the next day. U.S. experts say evidence suggests Palestinian militants rocket hit Gaza hospital. It's almost like the Wall Street Journal didn't want to retract their overt lies. Failure of journalism. So instead of saying, whoopsie daisies, we got this one wrong, sorry about that, what they should have said is, with the deepest remorse and regret, we apologize for believing Hamas. And this is the world we live in, and what people need to understand about the far left. You and I think that who we are just regular people trying to figure out the world. We don't know what is absolutely true. There are certain things we think are good and bad, and we are trying our best to understand the nature of what's happening in our country and around the world to solve these problems and bring peace so that people can live peacefully and successfully with their families.
Yeah.
And that means when it comes to war and conflict, when it comes to the culture war and American politics, we need the truth. Because what we're trying to do is adjudicate to the best of our abilities. Two people stand before us. One person says, they attacked my hospital. I say, oh, you think that's really bad. They shouldn't have done that. What did you say? No, we didn't. They bombed their own hospital. Okay. Here's what we don't want. Civilians shouldn't die. If the argument from both sides is civilians died, then clearly the solution here is minimizing civilian casualties. Let's figure out what happened here so we can do just that. As it turns out, one person lied to us. Hospital wasn't even hit. One person was wrong.
No observable
They
damage.
assumed the hospital was hit. And the media ran the lies of the people who claimed the hospital was blown up, was leveled. They claimed leveled.
No observable
That's
damage.
crazy. He said leveled. Why? I don't know. Maybe because the New York Times ran fake photos. I mean, they're real photos. But they're not photos of the actual site. And that's something I noticed right away with the story. When we had a super chat of Timcast IRL and someone said Hamas's rockets could not level a hospital, they're not strong enough, it had to have been Israel. I said, was the hospital leveled? I didn't see that. Is that what happened? People just said it. They believed it. They pushed the lies. There's a big super chat too. And maybe this individual was just wrong and really thought that's what happened. And the next day we see parking lot fired. No blast clear. What likely happened? Hamas firing rockets in civilian territory over civilian structures. One of the rocket's propulsion systems malfunctioned, causing it to sputter out, dropping its propulsion system in one area, small explosion, and its payload on the hospital, larger explosion. Did not kill hundreds. But this is what you'll get. And for this now, you have Harvard students doubling down. And I'm glad, good. The culture war is heating up over this. And I'm glad it is. It's time to put an end to the abject evil that is modern American leftism. And I don't mean the typical liberal. A lot of liberals are coming out right now. It's amazing to see Ted Lieu on the right side of this one. I find that fascinating. Saying like Hamas lied and the media just believed all of it. Yeah. The corporate press is the enemy of the people. These abject lies, overt lies, to sow discord and chaos, to support evil people who killed civilians. They say Israel killed civilians. Yeah, all right. Where's this? From the Daily Wire. I saw this article. Moral equivalency is nonsense. Jeremy Boring shreds Piers Morgan's guest attacks on Ben Shapiro.
Bassem
Wow.
Youssef right here.
Wow,
Egyptian
absolutely
comedian.
brilliant. And Jeremy Boring
Boring,
breaks down
DW
masterfully
CEO,
and brilliantly
Daily Wire CEO.
where we're at. Let me read this for you. And I'll be the first to say I've been
I
lightly
checked
critical
out.
of Ben.
I
I wouldn't say
checked
harshly critical
out
because I mostly
the
agree with him. I just think,
Youssef interview
and I
on my
respectfully
channel.
understand why he
Check
does
it out
as
if y'all
he
haven't.
is. He's very, very passionate
Check
about this.
out
He's
my
there before the attack
review.
happened. He has family and friends there. So
Not family and friends.
And it's almost
Ben
meaningless for me to
said
be like,
that he knows
if Ben
people
lowers
who
temperature
has
a little bit, he might
friends
be more
and
effective. It's like,
family.
how do you tell someone who's witnessing their
And-
friends and family, their communities being
But
attacked and
Ben
massacred,
told
like,
Pierce
calm
that
down? So it's
is
like,
not
I think logically,
blood related to
it's
anybody
like
that
you can be more
died
effective here,
in Israel.
but sympathetically, I'm like, I totally get it, man. I totally get it, right? Daily Wire co-founder Jeremy Bourne responded to criticism of his colleague Ben Shapiro by Egyptian comedian Bassem Youssef on Piers Morgan's show Uncensored Tuesday night. Bassem Youssef came on, sardonically said he agrees with Shapiro so he would avoid being called a terrorist sympathizer, before falsely accusing the Daily Wire of wanting Israel to kill everyone in the Gaza Strip. You see how they lie? I just can't stand these people, dude. I try to steal, man, and give as much leeway to my political opponents as possible. And they lie all the time. It's so annoying. And at a certain point, it's just like, okay, we're dealing with evil. What do we do? I think it's just time to stop giving figurative quarter. Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. He said his solution was for Israel to annex Gaza and kill as many of SOBs as possible to make sure it'll never happen again. He just said before falsely claiming that Israel killed 500 people in an airstrike on a hospital. You see how they lie? So my question to Ben Shapiro is, how many more SOBs do we have to kill before this happens? Because the implication from Bassem Youssef is that Ben Shapiro is saying target civilians. He's not.
He said
Morgan
terrorists.
pushed back on his
Ben
accusations because
said
Shapiro said that he was
terrorists.
conflating different interviews. And he played a clip of what Shapiro actually said, calling for targeting Hamas. All these leftists say Palestine is not Hamas. Okay. They should have no problem with Israel sending strike forces into Gaza to execute Hamas leaders. Is that what you're arguing for? AOC basically called for that. No, they wouldn't want that. They say, no, don't do it. Don't invade. Okay, so then airstrikes. There's going to be collateral damage. Civilians are going to die. Yeah, right. We don't want that. I don't know how to respond, right? I don't want civilian casualties. Jeremy Bourne breaks it down. Let me read. Morgan then brought on Boring, who was listening to Yusuf's segment and gave him a chance to respond. He says, well, first of all, I'm making a point not to speak for Ben Shapiro. He's got 20 IQ points on me and speaks for a living professionally, so he's much better prepared to defend himself. But as his business partner, his best friend, I do feel I have to respond to things that Bassem was just saying. With all due respect, I got to be honest. I think, with respect to Ben Shapiro, Jeremy Boring's answer was top notch. You know, he can be humble and say Ben's got 20 points on him. I think his response here is it's just better. No disrespect. I'm just saying, Jeremy. He says, first of all, the question of how many SOBs have to be killed to end this conflict, I suppose that the answer is as many of them as it takes. This doesn't mean that I or Ben or any decent person in their right mind is happy with the killing of civilians. I suppose at the very beginning of this conflict that a woman or child blown apart in Gaza is just as tragic as a Jewish baby killed in one of the settlements. That doesn't mean that Israel's actions or the actions of Hamas are morally equivalent. The tragedy is a tragedy, but the moral equivalency is nonsense. If you entered Israel with the express purpose of targeting and murdering civilians with your own hands in cold blood, that is not comparable to Israel bombing targets in the Gaza Strip and killing civilians as a terrible, tragic consequence. War is terrible. War is an awful thing. That's why decent people do not lightly engage in war, and why Hamas should not have incited this war. You know, we can talk about the history of the Israeli conflict. I'm not a professional political commentator. I'm a CEO, I'm a screenwriter, and I'm certainly not Ben Shapiro. I'm not here to talk about the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but we all saw what happened on October 7th. And the idea that Israel was not going to react severely to that, or that Israel should not react severely to that, is ludicrous. The idea that Ben Shapiro should be moderating his voice, that Ben Shapiro should be saying, what? No, Israel should not respond to a situation? That's nonsense. Brilliantly put. Nobody wants civilians to die. I think we absolutely must remain critical of Israel when they strike targets in Gaza that result in civilian deaths. Why? I'm not saying I have a better answer. I'm saying we as decent human beings must always lament the death of civilians.
Yeah.
Innocent individuals caught up in the crossfire.
Full stop.
But all I can say is, this is war. We don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
And the left, the Palestinians say they're under occupation and they started the war. The war would stop if Hamas stopped firing rockets into Israel. I absolutely believe so. Look, I'm not going to be an expert on this. The problem is, they want from the river to the sea. They want the entirety of this territory, and they will never stop. I can't speak to 1948. I can just tell you that right now, if you tear down the barriers, storm in, and yes, this is part of their Hamas's military doctrine. Target civilians as bargaining chips against Israel. If that's your strategy, then expect your leadership to be decimated. And just because Israel has the power to do so doesn't make them evil in responding to the attacks. But I will say, I absolutely will remain critical of the killing of civilians. Even if Israel argues they had no choice or gave warnings, doesn't matter. I'm not saying that one side is right or wrong, or I'm absolutely condemning Hamas. But the point is this: if at ever a point arises where we excuse the killing of civilians, then we have entered a darkness in which you're not coming back from. We do not excuse the killing of civilians. We don't. I don't. You can do whatever you want, but I absolutely condemn it, while understanding why Israel is targeting Hamas. What's the alternative? Ground invasion? Israel's been warned against it. A lot of people say, you're just taking Israel's side on this one, blah, blah, blah. I'm taking the side of right now, as of October 7th. I can't speak to before, during, or after. There is no justification for storming into a music festival and killing civilians, shooting people in their car as they drive up to the gate of their kibbutz, and arguing that settlers are not civilians. That's evil. Again, if Hamas tore the barricades down and then sent out a bunch of guys with guns and secured territory outside of Gaza and says, we are returning to our land, I'd be like, wow, that's war, territorial dispute. They minimize civilian casualties, and then a war broke out between Israeli soldiers and Hamas. Very different conversation. I'd be like, man, war happens all over the world. Instead, Hamas said explicitly they will target civilians and capture them. It was a target of opportunity. Okay, you crossed the line. And then we had Max Blumenthal who said, well, that's their only option. Dude, I'm not playing that game. It's not. Let me read more. Morgan asked Boren what he thinks proportionate response would be to the atrocities committed against the Israelis by Hamas. And Boren responded, no moral person could possibly call for a proportionate response, saying, well, first of all, I don't know what a proportionate response is or why we would want it. I suppose a proportionate response would be for 3,000 Israelis to go to the fence, gun down innocent Palestinian women and children, burn their bodies, burn them alive, take hostages, rape their women. No one wants a proportionate response. No moral person could possibly call for a proportionate response.
Yeah.
It's a fair point. Here's the issue. Right now, I believe the numbers are such that more civilians in Palestine have been killed than in Israel.
That's facts.
So the issue is, Israel's response has been more destructive, and thus there's calls for a ceasefire. That's why I say we must remain critical of Israel, no matter what. I'm not condemning or condoning a response. It's war. Of course they'll respond. You totally get it. And I'm just saying,
it's logical to criticize the demons on both sides.
Hamas intentionally targets civilians. Israel, it's collateral damage. Both are bad.
A lot of people
intentional
are
targeting of
sadly biased.
Collateral damage. That's tough to say. I'm sorry, but it is.
If you don't criticize the demons on both sides, you are both sides. You are a goofball, bro. A clown. I gotta keep it a buck. I gotta be candid. If you refuse to criticize the true demons on both sides, you are a clown.
That's tough to say.
You are
I do not expect Israel to sit by as rockets are being fired into Ashkelon and Tel Aviv and these civilian areas under the guise of this religious or multi-generational war. It's war. The left is going to make the arguments that Hamas wants their land back and they're fighting a war and they're under occupation. Okay, you're not going to win that argument. I'm sorry. Peace begins with, look, I got to be honest, sometimes there's surrender. I can understand if our country was occupied and 70 years later, you had Americans being like, we will restore America to its borders. Totally get it. At a certain point, though, you lose. There's a lot of questions about how you answer this, and the truth is, I don't think there's an easy answer. What I can say is, Hamas started a fight where they targeted civilians, and these are the repercussions. I'll put it this way, bank robbers storm into a building and start shooting people. The security guards return fire, and in the process, several civilians are killed. Who do we blame? You blame the robbers. That's it. I don't know what to tell you. Jeremy Boring says the purpose of war is to defeat your enemy. The West has, in my lifetime, forgotten the purpose of war because the true cost of war is so terrible. The last time the West engaged in war and won was World War II, and they did it through incredible brutality. They did it by bringing their enemies to heel. That's not a thing to rah-rah about. That's not a thing to look forward to. As I said, all decent people should avoid war.
Yeah.
But I think the sort of lie, the post-World War II, the post-war consensus lie, is that somehow war in which you kill a bunch of people and don't secure victory is morally superior to a war where you do secure victory. I would say that the only way to morally justify war is to win it. Otherwise, your very argument that brought you into the war, this enemy must be defeated, ends up being proven a lie. There are no easy answers. And everybody wants us to come out and just keep taking the position where we're like, oh yeah, Israel was wrong to do anything. I'll tell you this. I don't see the reason for us to be involved in any of it. If the U.S. wasn't involved, Israel would not exist. I genuinely think so. Then there's the Samson option, in which they would use nuclear weapons to secure their existence. If they were going to be invaded or wiped out. It's not easy. I don't have the answers. I can only tell you that in the real world, there's no easy answers. There are simple moralities. If you are the aggressor who targets civilians, you will be dealt with. And there will be repercussions that unintended consequences, collateral damage.
Yep.
Collateral damage is not the intentional killing of civilians. It's that civilian structures and civilians die when militaries retaliate.
Yeah.
It's the age-old question. If a butterfly was trapped in a spider's web,
indisputable reality.
Serious question, would you? Some people say yes. The butterfly is beautiful and it's going to be killed by the spider. But does not the spider have the right to live as well? And the spider eats the butterfly.
Spider does.
And
if
so,
the butterfly is
there's no right or wrong answer.
the food of the spider,
you decide your own moral line.
the spider should be. The spider should be able to live.
And then I said yes. And then I was asked, but what about the spider? Should the spider die? The spider hunts to survive. Taking its food away, destroying its web. You're hurting it.
Yeah.
Why? It's because we think the butterfly is more beautiful. Does not the spider have a right as well, even if we think it's ugly? Which is a question. And so then
certain people have that superiority mindset.
No, moment. And I realized
arrogance.
There's no right or wrong answer. You decide who gets to live or die.
They believe butterflies are superior to spiders.
Spider live or should the
they
butterfly
think the lives of butterflies matter more, are more important than the lives of
the human perspective
of
is
spiders.
so fascinating to them.
Than the
Because
lives
the system is what it
of
is.
spiders.
And then humans decide some moral line and
Crazy.
take action.
It's crazy,
As
man.
for what we're seeing here,
No
the
life
question
is
much
superior or
I am
inferior.
not saying that
No
Palestine is a
being
spider or a butterfly or
is
Israel is not or
is
anything like that.
superior.
I am not saying that there is no moral action to be
No
taken.
being
I'm saying
is
that
inferior
when it
or
comes to the
superior.
nature of the world, you must recognize that you have to decide to what degree you are willing to engage in actions which could kill to do the right thing. And what that right thing is. As for the spider and the butterfly, there's no right or wrong. I mean, you can certainly argue the spider should live. What I'm saying is that in the issue of Israel and Palestine, you must recognize that if you decide a moral action, you will cause suffering in some degree. You know, and I said this for a while. No matter what action you take, no matter what action,
Inevitable harm.
you will help someone and you will hurt someone.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily absolute, it's a generality, but
Yeah.
I mean, as simply as let's think about skateboarding, right? How does that help or hurt anybody? Well, let's say that you want to engage in the culture, and you go to the skate park, and as a participant of that park, which received $400,000 in city or state funding, you are enjoying yourself and your life is getting better. But hold on there. Somebody else wanted the $400,000 to repair some infrastructure, and a vote was said and decided the skate park would be better at this time. That person is now upset, saying, "Why couldn't we get the funding?" That person may be asking themselves, without even realizing the money was diverted for a skate park. My point is, you go out, and I learned this when I was doing fundraising for nonprofits. You go out and you go to people and say, "Please give me money for this cause," and people do.
Yeah.
And you think, "I'm doing good. I am bringing goodness to this world." But the political efforts of the nonprofit you're working for are causing a hindrance to other people. Fossil fuels, climate change, There are people who want to reduce carbon. They believe they're right. I'm not saying they're right, but they do have a mission. When you go and advocate for their cause, you are causing a detriment to many people in industry, and you're raising the cost of gas. The more you fight against fossil fuels, the more detrimental the oil industry to the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry. Prices go up, you're hurting someone somewhere. There is no simple path forward. Ultimately, the point comes down to this. We try to maximize goodness and minimize harm.
Yeah.
Sometimes not so easy, because we can't just take a utilitarian approach to everything. The idea that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few can be atrocious at times. It could mean killing of this is the argument made effectively when it comes to like the second revolution in Egypt, when the government starts killing the Muslim Brotherhood. Though they may have been morally right in winning their election, the government said, you know what? For the betterment of the majority, we'll just start killing the minority, and that's horrifying.
Yeah.
The world is not filled with easy answers. If it was, we would be having these conversations.
Facts.
That being said, I believe it is fair to say that the left represents chaos, disorder, and evil. They are lying to us about what happened. As we, good people, try to solve these problems and minimize collateral damage
The far
and
leftists,
civilian casualties,
they are garbage.
They lie about it happening to garner international support so they can continue to wage war, targeting and killing civilians.
Yeah.
No matter what choice you take, bad things happen.
Yeah.
We try our best to minimize the bad things and stabilize things to create peace. It is not easy. I'll leave it there. Nick?
Yeah, man. Shout out to Tim Pool, man. Yeah, bro. Love over hate, man. Harmony over disharmony. Peace.